So first, Seth, I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, yeah? Is it because I picked Begotten and then I picked John Waters?
Yeah, we've got this whole little narrative going that this is just me putting Seth through everything. And then the second that Seth gets to pick a movie, there's a big pulsating asshole on my screen.
If you poke at the asshole, it bites back.
You stare into the asshole, it stares back.
It makes you watch bullshit.
Yeah, you're a sick little bastard is what you are.
Yeah, I had to bring my son for support on this episode. Wanted him to learn the ropes.
Your big son.
Yeah, see what it's like when daddy goes to work. Right, son?
When I was a boy, my dad would always introduce me to people as his attorney. And they'd get a really big laugh out of it, and I wouldn't understand it. And he would guffaw at me. My attorney here.
That sounds like something that he would do like at least 100 different times.
Oh, yeah. It was a running bit. It was a running bit.
All dad jokes are running jokes. There's never a one-off dad joke.
My dad jogs.
Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the podcast for films that either hurt so bad or hurt so good. I'm Marc Dottavio.
I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we're discussing the director of some of the most gleefully trashy and repulsive cult films ever made, and that is the one and only John Waters. We'll be looking at the first and last films in his famed trash trilogy, starting with 1972's truly transgressive midnight sensation Pink Flamingos, and ending with 1977's filthy, depraved fantasy Desperate Living. Don't say we didn't warn you. All right, well, Robin, I'm sure you've heard some of the podcasts before, so I'm sure you know how it goes. One thing I don't know is how to say your last name.
Oh, it's Guyler.
Guyler. Oh, okay. I guess I did know that.
What were you going to say?
Well, that's what I thought it was. I just thought it was wrong.
Guiler?
So I guess I didn't think it was that. Yeah, it's just the spelling throws me off.
Yes, it's an odd spelling.
Here comes Grueler.
A lot of people said Googly. I had a professor who thought it was Goulier for years.
Ooh, that's cool.
Oh.
I would not have corrected him. Yeah.
Goulet.
Yeah, can we not use that? This
We
is
finally-
Robin Guiler.
We finally had a director whose name is just John Waters, and so Marc
I know
had
how
to
to pronounce that.
So Marc had to go in on a guest for pronunciation.
Oh shit,
content.
hang on.
Yeah, can we look that up on YouTube and see how it's pronounced? Tony?
I know. I love that. Like, anytime you guys are mystified by the pronunciation of a name, you turn to YouTube translators instead of like.
Why would you not go to YouTube? You get stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh god.
That's where language is born.
Oh my god.
You guys got jokes, you guys got running themes.
Yeah, if you
callbacks.
you stick with it, you get the continuity, like the Marvel Universe.
It's like a Frank Zappa album.
That too. Frank Zappa enters the
So we have the
Spider-Verse.
Unwatchables cinematic universe. The UCU.
The UCU? Sounds like a terrible college.
Yeah.
So, Seth, you want to introduce our guest since you guys are sharing the frame right now, and I'm not sure if you're the one on the left or the right, but
This is my son,
let's see.
Robin Guiler. No, he's not my son. He is my best friend since high school, Robin Guiler. I feel like you can introduce yourself just fine as far as what you would like to.
I want you to introduce.
You want me to introduce you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. What are you to me? You are a bandmate in my band Valley Girls and other projects, and a genuine art boy about town in the Akron, Ohio area, I would say.
And John Waters super fan? Is that
He
accurate?
is. He kind of started to bloom as a Waters fan. Before I had seen like a few John Waters movies, and then we started this podcast, and then he just started talking about John Waters, and I was like, oh yeah, that's really stupid that we haven't done any, and I still have not seen a lot of them. So this was definitely a little bit of Robin's Robin taking the initiative and getting this ball rolling. And John Waters, Unwatchables.
That's
Well,
one for the wiki bio right there. That's
Mhm.
word for word the wiki bio if you look it up.
See citation.
Well, good. I'm glad that we have an expert here because before I watched Pink Flamingos, I had not seen any John Waters films all the way through. And I thought about, maybe for this episode, I could go and run through, even a couple extra ones. But I wanted Pink Flamingos to be the first one that I saw because that's always what I associate with him. I actually
first
was under
time.
the impression that it was his first film, but it turns out it's not.
Oh, goodness, no.
Yeah. And I think that even though I hadn't seen his movies, I had always respected his place in pop culture and, what he did for cult filmmaking. And I'm definitely familiar with his persona. And I think a lot of people are because, he's the rare director. Like I can picture what he looks like. And I bet there are a lot of people who maybe haven't even seen any of his movies, but still know John Waters, the, cuddly, like dirty grandpa with the pencil mustache. Making wry jokes and cameos in movies. I remember him turning up in like Seed of Chucky and some other films where he has like these small supporting roles.
I remember
And
always like seeing him in those I Love the 70s things on MTV or VH1, and I just always being like, who is this man?
A talking head fixture, yeah.
yeah, and he
Great
hosted like
Poupon. I always loved Great Poupon.
wow,
Who
was
are
great.
you? It's because I held the finger under my nose. That's what
That was as good as your Lars von Trier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely the mustache that did it. But yeah, he's
Working
hosted
on it.
TV shows, he's written books, and even people who do know him from his movies, I think maybe a whole like generation knows him more from his little like stint in mainstream Hollywood doing movies like Crybaby with Johnny Depp or Hairspray, which of course, became a hit Broadway musical. So anyone who has that kind of stuff going on for them has kind of, grown bigger than that initial little cult fan base. So I guess I have seen the Hairspray musical, so that's as close as I've gotten to John Waters. But guess what? That is not exactly
pretty
like Pink
tame.
Flamingos. Those are like PG movies that are kind of like nostalgia pieces. And yeah, if we're going back to early 70s John Waters, that is not something you can take your mom to.
Although Robin just spent Mother's Day watching, which one was it?
I did invite my mother over to watch Serial Mom on Mother's Day, which is a tale of Kathleen Turner as a your average housewife who is also a serial killer the entire time, and she's married to Sam Waterston. And kind of, just goes on a rampage throughout the whole film, and you're supposed to empathize with her and, want to see her succeed, which, I won't give away too much, but she does well for herself.
It does have mom in the title.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, I'm actually kind of interested in that. I might check that out. But these films are going way back towards the very beginning of his career, and there's so much to get into here because the place that he came up with, which was he was born in a Baltimore suburb, and all of his films in the early 70s were filmed in Baltimore. And he was basically this kid from the suburbs who was fascinated with like the downtown Baltimore scene, this counterculture, like gay scene that was going on there. And that's where he met a lot of the people, I guess, that he's been collaborating with throughout the years, including Divine, who we'll get to a little later. I want to spend some time on Divine because that's a great discovery of John Waters. But I was interested to, read about him as this little, I guess, weird, skinny gay kid who was finding these like-minded misfits in downtown Baltimore. And these early films have a lot of the same people in them in the cast, a lot of the same crew. I believe this little group was called the Dreamlanders after
Yes.
Dreamland Productions.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those people, I mean, only ever worked with John Waters. Very few of them, I think, really went on to careers beyond that, unless I'm wrong.
Well, and if they did, it was mostly being cast on the merits of having been in a John Waters film.
Sure. You think it would work the other way.
Yeah. And it's hard to imagine these people fitting into any other kind of movie when you get a look at these. But yeah, especially these two that we're going to talk about have a lot of the same actors in them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, his whole thing was like, he was one of the most influential, like DIY, low budget, scrappy filmmakers. Like he operated the camera, he wrote, directed them, edited them, and these are like exploitation films, or at least they're influenced by exploitation films. They're filled with just outrageous purple dialogue and kitsch and grotesquerie, I guess, that he wants to push.
That's the word.
Every taboo.
Grotesquerie.
That's
the only true word.
It's excellent. It's just everybody's going off on these wonderful monologues, like bad Shakespeare, dirty Shakespeare monologues out of nowhere. And it's amazing to watch these like non-actors memorizing like pages of dialogue. It's very impressive. There's not a lot of cutting a lot of the time. They're really showing their chops. They're doing like a whole scene in one take, you know. The camera's not moving around. I love this sort of like backyard filmmaking that does feel like it is just like, especially these early movies, they feel like they were made just for the community, like the scene that they were in. They were made by the scene and shown to the scene, and that always excites me. Like Kuchar and early Guy Madden stuff reminds me of that, and it's always been really inspiring to me.
Yeah, and there's a sense of this being like outsider art that, I don't know, there's an undercurrent that may not be like right there on the surface, but you know, there's like a queer sensibility to it. There's all of these kind of scenes that you can read into them. But on the surface, I mean, it's basically, on one hand, it's camp, which is just intentionally silly and over the top and wooden even at times. And then on the other side is just this almost sadistic willingness to see how far they can go and what any taboo that they could possibly break, almost like they're like going down a list of them to see what is something that a movie would normally never even allude to, let alone show, and they want to give you a close-up lens of it for an extended period of time.
Of a singing asshole.
Yeah.
Real long shot of a singing asshole.
So long.
Before Family Guy brought back "Bird is the Word," John Waters had it sung by an asshole.
Man.
Yeah, that's John Waters in a nutshell, I guess. But he does have real influences, and I was trying to kind of parse out exactly what they are. I know there's a little bit of Andy Warhol in there, since he was coming out of like the late 60s, this kind of postmodern idea that challenged the regular conventions of filmmaking. And that's where we get, you know, the low production value. And I think sometimes intentionally jagged, you know, editing and transitions and overdubbing, stuff that is throwing all of these normal conventions to the wind. And then on the other hand, I think I see a lot of these like really overheated 50s melodramas, which you can see in Pink Flamingos. They have these posters all over the wall for movies like Baby Doll and Cul-de-sac and Boom. And I think that's a very kind of queer thing too, that, you know, things that star, who are the ones in Boom? There's Richard Burton and who's the lady in I can't remember. Elizabeth Taylor, sorry. We'll fix that in post.
There it is.
I kept wanting to say
you found
Kathleen
her.
Turner. Yeah,
we're not fixing that in post.
Yeah, don't you dare.
Yeah, we never do. It'll be in the intro like everything else that we mess up around here.
Oh yeah, they're like Douglas Sirk movies, but they got poop eaten in them. You know,
Bergman.
Bergman.
But yeah, and if you believe him to what he says, it would be also majorly like the splatter and the gore films and the sex films of like the 50s through the 60s, like the nudist camp movies, things like that.
Yeah, and I read him talking about William Castle, who was, a big B movie guy and was always having these gimmicks going along with the movies, like smell-o-vision or handing out barf bags or something. And I know that
both things John Waters would do.
Yeah, I love
Right.
the gimmicks. So much of it is about gimmicky, like that's part of the sleeves.
It's very gimmick driven.
Getting asses in the seats, you know.
Yeah, drive-in movie style.
Freaks.
Yeah, I believe Polyester actually did do like smell-o-vision, where they had scratch and sniff cards.
And Tab Hunter is the romantic lead.
Yeah, and that's having a real celebrity or actor in one of these movies after you watch this original run of them just seems like, can this guy actually work with actors? Or I don't know. That's kind of a question that I have, is that if I hadn't seen these movies, or if I didn't know going into these movies who John Waters was, and that he went on to this, at least for a brief period, mainstream careers, like, is this a person who even knows how to make a movie?
Yeah, you got Johnny Depp in his movie. It's so funny.
Exactly. So you never know. But I guess
really make a movie out of the whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing now. That's what he needs to do. Pooping in the bed is like
Hulu
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. You could do turnaround in 9 months on that.
Oh my god.
I said go for it.
I gotta go for it. Poop in that bed. I was there. I told her, you poop in that bed.
Yeah, we could find a room for that singing asshole in the courtroom somewhere.
We gotta bring out the defense attorney. The singing asshole. Well, should we get to the plot synopsis? This is my favorite part of this show anymore.
Oh dear, yeah.
Trying to figure out how to synopsize this stuff.
Well, let me just say real quick that so Waters started with making some short films, and then something's called Mondo Trasho, which I guess is like a silent film.
Yeah, very hard to see.
Ooh, I want to see that.
And then Multiple Maniacs, which I know a little bit more about, mainly for the scene.
Well, I'd like to just go back and, for the sake of the justice to the short films, there's a Hag in a black leather jacket. And then there's Eat Your Makeup. And then there's the Diane Linklater story, which is a tale of the daughter of Robert Linklater, who was a terrible 50s through 70s, conservative commentator. And his daughter allegedly, was tripping on acid and jumped out of a window and killed herself. And then he made this record where he's like feigning a phone call to her about, like, please don't do acid, and it became a real big seller, but it was just so gaudy and tasteless. So, they made a short out of it.
Those two words describe these movies better than anything I could think of. There's no such thing as good taste in these films. And all right, so you've seen those shorts?
No, those are hard to see. Hard to see. I haven't seen them. I just think, how wonderful,
But Multiple Maniacs we've both seen, and that's like his first proper movie, like full length.
Yeah, it's also his first talkie.
Yeah, first talkie. And he really is fully formed. Like, you think he's going to have like some kind of slow rise to this, like, oh, maybe what if I actually... No, it's like immediately divine, killing people.
Fully inhabiting.
Wild lesbian sex, and it's just all over the place immediately.
A reenaction of the Stations of the Crosses. Of the Cross, rather.
Oh,
so, and I understand that there's some sort of a sexual assault by a giant lobster.
Yeah.
Well, Lobstora does make an appearance in the film, yes.
Okay.
That's the best
Lobstora
part.
assaults Divine prior to her final rampage, Godzilla-like through the town.
I just want to tell our audience that we've been recording for 24 minutes, and this is already like minute for minute the most unhinged discussion we've ever had on this podcast.
We haven't
We're
even
just
gotten to
stating
the
facts.
films
And
yet.
We're not
We're
even
just
talking
going
about the
through
movie.
the wiki.
Yeah, but all of those do star Divine, right?
The early films, yeah, basically everything up through Divine's death features or stars Divine, save Desperate Living.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so I think Divine would be a good place to start with this because that is the star of Pink Flamingos. And Divine, I think, is always going to be associated with John Waters and is maybe his greatest discovery. Because I did a little bit of research about that. So Divine was born Glenn Milstead and grew up around the same like Baltimore area that John Waters did. So they were like childhood friends. He's basically, I don't know, you guys think the most iconic or legendary drag queen ever?
Sure, I don't know.
For someone like us,
Yeah.
yeah.
My unofficial
I think
opinion.
a lot of people would rather RuPaul because it's more palatable, but
Divine
Sure.
could eat RuPaul.
absolutely.
But
Maybe if
yeah,
Divine
it's so
had lived
amazing. They
longer.
were friends in like as little kids.
Mhm.
How does lightning striking?
Well, I was really torn because I wanted to suggest Female Trouble, which, for any fan of Divine is really, that's the peak Divine moment is Female Trouble, which where she stars as Dawn Davenport and her life of crime and being a bad girl and all the places it takes her for the sake of beauty.
Ooh.
Yes. But Divine, I think, is a really distinguishing feature of John Waters' entire early career. And when you're first starting out with his work, there's a tendency to focus so much on that aspect. But I think that I'm glad that we did Desperate Living because it also showcases how it exists independent of that. It doesn't need Divine to hold up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, he did go on to have a career outside of John Waters also with, doing theater. And I guess he had some disco singles that were actually
high
kind of
energy
successful.
singles.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
He was big in Europe.
And people will probably, in general, know him most from Hairspray because, that's the role of the mother in that, it was played by John Travolta in the movie adaptation of the musical. And
Are you allowed to?
I just watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
good. It's great.
Are you had a remark about John Travolta? Are we allowed to feature it or?
Oh, I don't know. I
the
might.
Scientologist.
Yeah, I might. We might. I don't know how
fair
much we should
game.
talk about John Travolta. On
Go
here.
go ahead and say it, and I'll run it by the lawyers, and if they don't like it, we'll cut it out.
I think his role was a little gay. In
You
Hairspray.
that's not you put it so well though.
What did I say?
I think it was something to the effect of that was the closest John Travolta would ever be to being allowed to come out.
Yes, it's kind of a bummer.
Mm.
Is sharing a musical number about love with Christopher Walken. But I mean, I guess if that's the best you got, that's the best you got. That's pretty good. I wish him the best.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll lose some major sponsors if we put that in the podcast. But maybe in a bonus episode, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I wish we weren't
Also,
funded.
Tony's a
I wish we weren't
Scientologist.
funded solely by Scientology money, or this would be a lot easier.
Dark Scientology money.
for me.
I'm surprised our power hasn't already gone out in the middle of this conversation from the
Yeah.
Scientologist producers who are watching us right
I'm
now.
ready. But derail. As
But
you
yeah,
will.
I think Hairspray was kind of a turning point where mainstream audiences saw Divine, and he was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, but then he died shortly after its release, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, 3 weeks after.
Yeah, so that's sad. Although, I was watching this movie called Trouble in Mind by Alan Rudolph a few months ago, and Divine turns up in that playing a guy, not in drag at all. And it was very strange to see. I didn't even realize who it was until afterwards.
Whoa.
But so he did play roles not in drag also.
In Female Trouble, he actually pulls kind of an Eddie Murphy, and he plays 2 roles in that film. And he plays a man, and he assaults his own character on Christmas morning.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I gotta watch this one now.
And Divine later calls him and says, "It's Dawn Davenport. You made love to me on Christmas morning."
Oh my God. Amazing. And so that's why when I was, reading about Divine, I was kind of wondering about the pronoun situation, because we know him so much as playing women like almost all the time. But I guess he's more in that area of RuPaul, like we talked about earlier.
I think we are tempted to look back and retroactively apply some of our own conceptions on Divine. And I don't think it's bad or anything, but yeah, he was him.
Yeah, and he died in the 80s, so it's not, who knows what his perspective might be if he was still alive today, but that just wasn't something that was, in the discourse back then. So that's what I'm sticking with, although in Pink Flamingos, he does play a woman, I believe. So
yeah, we can
might have to switch to she, for that. The plot of Pink Flamingos. Oh my God. Let me just start by saying that there's some wonderful narration by John Waters throughout the film, which, usually the narrator's voice is like a little bit neutral or, I don't know, professional sounding. And I just loved hearing him constantly be like this narrator with a commentary of like, well, and then across town, these 2 are up to no good.
Yeah, he sounds like some mom gossiping to her neighbor the whole time.
Yeah. But I guess I'll try to keep this as simple as possible, but Divine plays someone who's been dubbed the filthiest person alive by the tabloids. And for some reason, that has driven her into hiding under the alias of Babs Johnson. And so she is living in this little pink and blue trailer in the woods with her mentally ill mother, Miss Edie, who sits in a crib all day.
Hey, nobody said she was mentally ill.
No, they actually say much worse than that.
They say something along those lines in
They say
that
something
movie.
worse than that, yeah.
I think she's just having fun.
Yep, and she sits in this playpen all day and just rambles and rambles about eggs. She's obsessed with eggs and waiting for the Eggman to arrive.
Tell me more. I want to watch it already again.
And yeah, then this traveling companion, Cotton, who's just like a friend, I guess, and probably makes the smallest impression out of everybody just for being the least of a total freak show of everybody else.
He's just like a Manson kind of guy.
No, Cotton is Mary Vivian Pierce. You're talking about Crackers.
Oh, Crackers.
Babs' son.
Yes. Crackers is the son who looks like the hitchhiker from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, yes.
But slightly cuter even.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get to see plenty of him in this movie, and he has a bunch of sexual perversions that we get to see in detail throughout the movie, including a horrible, horrible scene that we'll talk about in a bit that involves a sex act involving chickens, live chickens. And but we're still on the basics here. So the general plot is across town are the villains, this couple, Connie and Raymond Marble, and they think they're the filthiest people alive and are very resentful of Divine, aka Babs Johnson, for assuming this title. And I guess they think that they're filthy because they kidnap women, have their servant impregnate them, and then sell the babies to lesbian couples while letting the mothers die in their basement dungeon.
But the whole thing is they're tourists. They're like arty people who are like interested in transgression and things like that. Whereas Divine and her camp are like just real deal, barbaric, filthy people. So they're just always trying to play catch up with Divine and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the husband Raymond likes to go around and flash people in public places, with a large sausage tied to his penis.
He was also
just
a John Waters
because.
repeat offender, right? He was
David Lockery, yes.
So wasn't he? So he was in a few of them. I know he like died of like a PCP related incident.
Yes, he OD'd on PCP and then fell through a glass table. Evidently,
Holy
was
shit!
The story, and he was cut to ribbons and subsequently passed on.
But he like was co-writer on some of the early movies I saw too, which is pretty wild to see. So he was in the Waters world for sure, and he's cute.
Well, and his look, I don't know. He's got like the blue hair and that mustache. He kind of occurred to me as being like a kind of Borat by way of Dr. Seuss.
Borat. I like that you said Borat.
An interesting parallel.
Indeed.
Borat.
And I do believe we see some blue pubic hair as well.
Yes, we do.
So I'm just giving the highlights here because it's really hard to talk about Pink Flamingos without just listing all the different things that you see.
Yeah.
Like their servant, Channing.
Fury.
He's the one who impregnates the captives. And eventually, we get a really, really lovely scene where instead of completely raping the person, he just masturbates, and we get this lovely, lovely close-up of him filling up a like a little injector, like a little syringe. That's the word I'm looking for, with semen and injecting it right into a close-up of a vagina.
Very fun stuff.
Yeah, and they have this little rivalry there. They send over Cookie to seduce the son, so Crackers, and she's the one who ends up doing this horrible sex act with the chicken with him. They send a turd to them. They call a cops on their crazy birthday party, and eventually burn down their little pink trailer.
And it's beautiful.
The tragedies, the mounting losses.
Yeah, it is just a great back and forth warfare going on between the two factions.
Yeah, because Babs gets hers,
Yeah, and so I don't know, is this movie really about anything, or is it really just the experience of watching it?
It's about filth.
About filth.
It sure
about
is.
The experience. It's a roller coaster. There's definitely a little something you can see there about how people, why are we looking at this stuff? Why do we get obsessed with this kind of stuff? And what is the evil couple's name?
Marbles.
The Marbles are this grotesque version of sort of what a person who would go see a John Waters movie might be, actually, as being this collector of gross things, just inspecting darkness, and it's you watch them and you are kind of what are they doing? What is this all about?
Yeah, it seems like part of the point is that we're seeing a bunch of people in this movie who would never get cast in movies. That we have, drag queens, morbidly obese people with questionable dental situations. Not all of the Dreamlanders lived long lives. So, you have the guy on PCP who died and some other people with health or drug issues too. And I think that's maybe part of the queer part of this too, that it's including people like that. The sexuality throughout is very fluid. And it basically is having, if anything, this is about this little surrogate family community, I guess, if I'm going to reach for something that's kind of heartwarming or meaningful. Is this a bunch of weirdos in real life making this movie, playing weirdos who are finding their place with each other? Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, it's very cartoonish.
They seem to have already found their place for me,
Mhm.
I suppose. So it's not about the seeking, especially in Pink Flamingos. It's about, I suppose, the maintenance of that existence.
Right, this is what you got to do. If you want to live like this, is what you got to do.
Yeah, being filthy is a ethos for these characters. So early on, Divine goes out like to a butcher and buys this slab of meat, and for no particularly apparent reason, just like unwraps it and shoves it in her crotch.
I kept it warm.
Well, she's
in
shoplifting
Mama's
it. Yeah.
oven. Oh, kept it warm in Mama's oven.
Then she goes and cooks it on the grill while that old black magic plays.
She scorches
She sings
it.
that old black magic.
Yeah, and on the way home, she just squats and pees like in some yard somewhere.
Because you gotta.
And they had no permission on that location. They just rolled up and, Divine went and took a piss and then they ran off again.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
proto, like, prankster, jackass kind of stuff, too, about a lot of this stuff. That
Yeah.
they were, like, on private property sometimes. Like, definitely did, like, they burned down the trailer at one point, and it's this uncontrolled inferno.
It looked so dangerous.
There's trees, there's a whole forest.
So many
that is,
things
like,
were close by.
Horrifying.
Precarious.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that everything is really slapdash here. And that's why I think it's funny watching this now and being like, is this a secret genius or, someone who has no idea what they're doing? And like this movie had a $10,000 budget, and even that much is not all up on the screen. It's like
No.
it looks more like around the $50 range. And, the actors are, if I'm going to be generous, amateurs.
Oh, but they're one of a kind.
Oh.
That's
yes.
the thing.
He knew
That is
who
the
he
thing
was
about
casting.
It's all his early movies are this wonderful proof of if you can like try and force these people into conventional roles and things like that, or you can take Edie and just let Edie be a crazy like exaggeration of what she might be, or like some fantastical version of what she might be, and make it work for her in the way that only she could do, in the way that only Divine could do. And I think that is even like big deal directors like Paul Thomas Anderson, that's like his whole thing. Like it's weird to draw the comparison, but like him and Tom Cruise, like everybody would be like, oh, Tom Cruise, I don't want to use Tom Cruise in my actual dramatic respectable movie, but he knows exactly what to do with him and writes something specifically for him. And that's what happens here. I think there is like this, like, I know my friends and I know what I want to give my friends and what will make them shine. And that's what that's what the joy in this, a lot of it is seeing him really like just creating a space for his friends to play, which is really great, and for them to shine. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up Jackass at one point, because so much of this movie is kind of about its own making while you're watching it. So we'll talk about the really unwatchable stuff in this shortly, but I do want to say that this is probably the most disgusting movie I've ever seen. And we've already talked about, Sallow or Antichrist, but I think this was way harder to watch than those, because everything in Sallow is clearly simulated. The
But
shit
it's
is
so
fake.
fun.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't understand not being completely entertained and enthused, I suppose.
My problem with Sallow and some of the other movies has been like, not that they were gross, but they were gross and kind of boring. Like, where this is like very like, I mean,
I thought Sallow was a barrel of fun myself. I had a great time
Robin
watching
loved
that
it.
movie.
But yeah, I mean, they are like walking cartoons. I did read somewhere that one of his big influences at an early age was putting on a puppet show.
Yeah.
And these do feel like he's like playing Dollhouse, like playing with puppets,
Yeah, they all shout their lines in these very absurd extemporaneous styles.
Well, the difference for me is that the things that we're seeing the people do in this movie by and large, they're actually doing. So if we're comparing it to Jackass here, is someone who's eating dog shit fresh out of the dog in the same shot, or a stripper doing a stripper doing a dance at a birthday party that ends with him just holding his asshole wide open in close up, and almost turning inside out at certain points. Just great.
Like a rosebud.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and then probably my least favorite scene of the movie where Crackers is having sex and essentially crushing or fucking a chicken to death. It looks like there's
on top
blood.
of a lady.
Yeah,
there's blood everywhere. The wings are flopping around. It looks like the girl is probably getting hurt and scratched, and that's quite different from anything gross that you would see in something else. So
I had to look away at that scene. That scene was too much for me. The first time I tried to watch this movie was years and years ago, and that's when we turned it off. We were just, I don't know, smoking weed and like thought it would be fun and put it on, and that it was where we were like, I don't know if this is fun anymore, man. But that's a brutal scene. That's a very brutal scene.
It is, but I don't know. I suppose it was very uncomfortable to view, but I feel like Cannibal Holocaust was a much worse thing. I remember things from Cannibal Holocaust that make me want to weep, and I felt like Pink Flamingos, you knew what you were seeing was wrong.
Well, what did John say about it? John Waters, we were watching the commentary.
Oh, yeah. He said, the chicken had a good life, would have been killed anyway. It, got to be in a movie and it got fucked. And then, now we're sitting here talking about it. Which I don't necessarily agree with that train of thought, but I certainly have seen worse things been done in film.
Yeah, I was going to ask everybody at some point which version of this they ended up watching. I had to stream this on Effed Up Movies, which we should reach out to them and offer to do some kind of sponsorship deal for this podcast, because I've watched several of them there already. But it was the version with the extended John Waters commentary at the end, and it is really disorienting because this film has kind of an infamous final scene that we'll get to, but then it just goes straight into pencil-moustached John Waters standing there talking about. It's very jarring, but yeah, his characterization of this as like the chicken, like being lucky to get fucked at the end of its life does not jive with what we see on the screen at all.
And it doesn't hold water, no.
I don't know.
The chicken does not look like it would agree with that assessment.
The chicken was going to get a really fast chop to the neck.
It's funny. I read on one of those websites that is like a watchdog, an industry watchdog on film, where they're talking about cruelty in filmmaking, with killing of animals. Because, shortly after Seth moved in with me, we watched Milo and Otis, where rumor has it,
Incredible Journey.
Yes, we watched Incredible Journey,
well,
which again, rumor has it, dozens of puppies and kittens, were sacrificed, thrown into rivers, and stepped on and killed by bobcats.
Footage of a cat just being chucked into the Whitewater Rapids,
and there's
being chased around by a lynx.
Yeah, this lynx is swatting at this cat on camera. So again, I don't condone the killing of animals for art, because that's a stupid idea, but it's not the worst time I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it's the first.
I mean, Jodorowsky blew up all those fucking toads and lizards like an ass.
I think it's the first.
I don't know who gets to win, but
yeah,
it's all
John Waters wins this round.
It's all a bad idea.
Yeah, I think this is our first on-screen animal torture and killing, but I was trying to fact find on this a little bit, and it seems like they did kill the chicken, which you can kind of obviously tell in the last shot.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual killing, I think, somebody claims happened off screen, and it was quick and painless or whatever. So I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, this is.
And then they cooked it after and ate it.
And John Waters claims in the commentary version of the movie when he's standing outside the trailer talking about this, that the crew later cooked and ate it, which, you know, that might just be one of those little mythology things that just sounds like almost too perfect an end for this chicken. But yeah, all the brutal rapes we've talked about on this podcast, and this one somehow gets overshadowed by the chicken part. So kudos
Hell,
to
in
John
Marley
Waters for
and
that.
Me,
I
they
suppose.
killed-
Cannibal Holocaust, they saw open a sea turtle. You know, it's the
Yeah.
worst thing I've ever seen in a movie. You know,
It's all
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's
It's
a line
all
for
bad.
me.
The eating
Now-
the chicken doesn't make up for
no, it doesn't. But
torturing the chicken for an hour before it's killed. No.
But you know, all the puppies in Incredible Journey were eaten by the cast and crew after.
They did. They fished him out of the river and ate him.
they fish.
So
Mark,
that's okay.
That's dark.
Oh, Jesus. But yeah,
We're gonna
for
lose
me,
our Scientology money.
after that scene, it was a little hard to start having a good time again, because it did just bum me out.
Oh
And-
wow, that's too bad.
See,
Because it picks right back up
See,
again.
that's
It's a
interesting.
happy
I
movie
wonder,
from there.
I wonder if part of it was that I knew about it. I had heard so much about it. I had the initial like, whoa, I've seen that scene and I have to turn it off moment. So I was ready for it. And that might be a thing. I think it might be a thing to watch this one for the first time. Not if you have no idea that scene is coming. That could be a
I mean,
thing.
I did
It is
recover,
awful.
but it took me a little bit.
It is just awful to see. Yeah.
Well, because it's not like the following scenes are all that easy either.
No, it's just one thing after another.
No, it's a lot of good fun.
It is a lot of good fun. But whoa, what else we got here? We got a whole closet full of evil in this movie.
Well, yeah, there's the birthday party that they throw for
I
Divine.
love that. It's so joyous.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there's like this beautiful sun overhead, and it's autumn. That's the thing. It's like
And
the
they're
whole
doing
movie's
poppers.
in autumn, and you can tell it's cold. Like you don't realize it like in the initial scenes when they're in the trailer, but like after a while, you start to see their breath, and it's like they were just like shivering. Some of them in like various states of undress, like out in the open for this movie.
Yeah, and that's where like she gets a bunch of gifts. You know, she gets like a pig's head and vomit on a napkin or something, and a giant cleaver, and you know that's all good fun. But then this stripper comes out, this male stripper, and I gotta say, I was like, I had just shaken off the whole chicken thing, and then this guy, you know, takes off his underwear and puts his legs like behind his head, and the film just stares at this lip-syncing asshole, I
I
guess.
think it's just a lot of good fun in that scene. I
You
just
know
think that part is just good
Do
fun.
you
Look,
like
I'm
your
just
asshole
informing the people.
stationary
This is
or
a
dancing?
transcript of what happens.
It is.
We have to talk about the man behind the asshole briefly,
Oh,
because we do. We only learned
It was
his name.
Tony.
Just come on, man. we
he was freshly 18 years old.
just take the wind out of my reveal. Yeah, so this guy, David E. Gluck. We didn't learn
Can't
his
believe you know
name
his name.
until he died just 2 years ago. He died in June of 2020, and his widow consented to his name being finally published, according to John Waters at least. But we can't read the whole thing on the podcast because it's too long, but I would highly encourage anyone listening to this to go read David Gluck's obituary in the Baltimore Sun, because it is
Whoa.
the most insane obituary you'll ever read. 70% of it is devoted to discussing his role as the singing asshole in Pink Flamingos. And not only does it go into detail about this scene and what specifically he's doing and what song his asshole is lip syncing, but it even calls out this woman, Mary M. Avara, who was the head of the Maryland State Board of Censors, And
yeah.
she was apparently someone who had like numerous she had basically like a lifelong blood feud with John Waters, as you can imagine. And she claims, according to this obituary, which again is just an insane place to find details like this, that she had looked at more nude bodies than 80 or 100 or 50,000 doctors, while while having to review these movies. And she has all these quotes in the obituary, and it has this like big dramatic moment where she loses the battle to censor the asshole scene because there's no touching. No one touches the asshole. I guess that's a big that must be some
Well,
threshold
no
you
one
can't
touches
cross
the
for
asshole.
Yeah, so
It is performing a song. I mean, that's not pornography. That's performance.
exactly.
singing. It's
true.
And my favorite detail
a
of the
simple song.
obituary is that it ends by or it doesn't end, but so it says that once this guy David Gluck's parents died, he no longer cared who knew he had played this role. And according to John Waters,
Played this role.
whatever you want to, I don't know. According to John Waters, quote, when we had the 25th anniversary and Pink Flamingos was shown in regular theaters, he'd go to the movies, and when his scene came on, he'd tap the person on the shoulder in front of him and say, "That's me." And John Waters says, I always consider that an act of domestic terrorism. So after that line, the obituary just continues. David Gluck was born in Baltimore and raised in Pikesville. After graduating in 1968 from Northwest, it just goes on to do all the normal like 3-paragraph obituary stuff and talks about like where he went to school and where he worked. So this is a real piece of literature, that you gotta find and read.
Tony, this is why we leave you in the dungeon to scour the internet for us. This is why we do this. That was a swish
to
as
find
the kids
David
say.
Gluck's obituary. Thanks.
What kind of Google search did you have to do to find this information about the asshole guy from Pink Flamingos?
I mean, exactly. Pink Flamingos asshole actor, like exactly what you would imagine.
Right.
It's not that hard,
Yeah.
You can type gibberish in there, and you can be like, "I'm doing research." Do your own research.
I wonder, did he beat out a bunch of people for that role? Were there like screen tests?
Well, no, John.
There's the audition
in
tape.
a lot of the commentaries, he'll say it's all about who would do what, who would show what, who would consent to this. You know,
you got the role.
Because it just so happened some girl he found was willing to show her vagina on camera and pretend to be inseminated.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense, that the casting would basically just be based on who will do what he wants them to, and nothing
you're
else.
gonna get fucked with a chicken, Jesus, You're not gonna see Demi Moore or
not even will, but can you? And they could, and they did.
Nicole Kidman.
I'm impressed. Nicole Kidman's in this movie.
She was in that bonkers Gus Van Sant movie.
Yeah, I wish she was in this one.
Oh, well, maybe once her parents die, we'll find out she was one of the people. Maybe she was the one who got the close up of being inseminated.
She was second chair singing asshole.
Man,
she was the
John Travolta,
understudy.
Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman.
Assholes.
It's all connected, man.
Do your own research,
these
folks.
Podcasters are trying to shove it down our face, man.
I'm telling you now, do your own research.
Yeah, don't be a sheep.
Don't believe.
I really feel this podcast is capturing the spirit of the film.
Yeah, end of commercial break.
But so back to the birthday party, it ends with the cops getting called, which is resolved by the partygoers attacking,
fucking war.
killing,
it's so awesome.
Massacre.
It's like Lord of the Rings, and Divine has the meat cleaver that she got for her birthday, and is killing all the cops. They just kill all the cops, and it's so cathartic and fun.
And then they eat them.
Yes, they do eat them.
Like the chicken.
Yep.
Makes it okay. They actually ate him. Just like the guy who played Darth Vader, when they killed him on set.
Yeah, when they killed Darth Vader, they ate him.
Yeah, they ate him.
And again, you might be asking,
Luke's
wait, so
doing
where
is
does this
cooking him.
fall in the plot? And the answer is, I mean, it doesn't.
The
There's
climax,
there's-
kind of.
oh no, we're not at the climax yet.
Don't you think that's the climax? The rest is, having sex with your son is falling action, I think.
Okay, there we go. There's something.
If I remember my college
It does
courses.
feel like that, yes. But then she has the press conference,
Oh, yeah.
and
that's
finally
true.
executes the marbles. So I feel like that's
That's the
almost-
cum shot.
Yeah, well, that's like the post. That's like when you got that extra bit that came out later.
Oh, and
you
you're
know?
holding each other
and
it's
then all of a
whispering.
sudden it's running down your mutual thighs.
So
Mutual
I would like to
thighs.
thank everybody for listening to the last episode of Unwatchables
Goodbye.
that will ever be recorded.
Mutual
if you're
thighs.
if you're seeing this footage as evidence at the trial, thank you for watching. Good Lord. All right.
Yeah. Come
So,
to
yeah.
Man Valley Girls, like and subscribe. Ding the bell at the bottom.
We're on YouTube.com.
Very cool noise rock band. Out.
Oh my Lord. This is one my dad's been listening to these occasionally, and I'm gonna have to put an advisory on this one.
Well, John Waters, wouldn't allow his parents to see Pink Flamingos. So
Oh, really?
It's fitting, yeah.
That's nice. So yeah, Divine and her son do go to seek revenge for getting their house burned down, and so they break into the Marble's house. They
and hex them.
by licking everything. They just
Get
lick,
it all! Get it all!
They lick the couch, they lick the walls, they lick the chairs in order to put a hex on the house.
I gotta say, I mean, with all the drool that was in the scene, it was damn near pornographic at that point. It was,
The spitting was gross, but I will say I didn't laugh as much as I wanted to during this movie. It was really only like a handful of times that I really found it funny as opposed to just jaw-dropping and bizarre. And one of it was when they're talking about how they just need to make the house as filthy as possible, and they're just frantically licking just banisters and furniture. And
But that's the thing.
that
with
hit a
scene-
level of absurdity I appreciated.
And I agree, because one of my favorite funny lines is "Get my balls, mama." I think that is the climax for me. Is "Get my balls,
Get my
mama."
balls, mama. That is the climax of this scene, which ends in
no climax, a thwarted climax.
Yeah, but
Coitus
Divine
interruptus.
has sex with her son.
Well, she has oral sex.
It's still sex.
All right.
She gives oral sex to her son in a not a suggested way. It's a thing that we see happen on camera.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. It's like, oh, grab my balls, mama. It's a great. You don't get to see enough mom-son interaction like that in film.
And you don't get to see like that soft of a member.
Yeah, he is
In a
not
blowjob.
turned on
Yeah.
in this scene.
Yeah, for some reason that wasn't the whole situation wasn't working for him.
The licking was not foreplay.
Did anybody see or read anywhere that John Waters said that was the only scene he regretted filming for this movie?
I did too.
Why?
Because it just looks like
Because they
flat out
were
porn.
friends.
They were pals,
And,
yeah.
Oh,
They
and
were
he like
friends,
now
and
they have
then
an awkward
he was,
thing.
He was dating Mary Vivian Pierce, also, I think.
Oh, okay.
And he never did a movie ever again.
Oh, because they had trouble after this scene.
I'm not sure he had an illustrious career ahead of him, but maybe that's
Crackers?
why.
I mean, if he could have lived longer, he could have gotten into stepson porn. You know.
Yeah.
He was kind of
Oh, I mean-
typecast after this role.
Yeah. And let's not
Step
forget,
one.
this is also the part of the movie where they free their captives from the basement. And their servant, Channing, who's the one who impregnates them, gets castrated by them in revenge.
His
And
penis is gone.
for some reason, that's the one thing that we don't see in the movie. It just stays in a close-up of Divine and her son's face, which I'm convinced is only because they just didn't have a way to pull it off
Yep.
with their budget. There's no way he
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
have shown
Because
it.
they are
And
sure to show a gory penis lying on the ground after the fact.
Yeah. They do manage to pull that off in Desperate Living, but you do get to see like the gory crater in his crotch,
The aftermath,
after post castration.
The castration crater.
Yeah, castration crater.
Just so we can check castration off the list of things to be done in this movie and to see, that's in there too. But that's all a roundabout way of basically getting to the finale of the movie, where they hold this mock trial for the marbles, which they invite the press to, and they all come up and are asking them questions like, "Is this premeditated?" Yes. And what are your political views? And I think her answer is kill everybody. That's reasonable, actually. I can get behind that.
Kill everyone now.
Yeah, there you go.
She's having so much fun being in front of the camera, and she is doing murder, right? She's killing the marbles on the news.
They tar and feather them and then kill them.
And she's also threatening the lives of the families of the news reporters. Which is another layer to the whole thing of just like no one is safe anywhere ever.
Yeah, and there's a good example in that scene of the occasional times that I laughed. Sometimes it was just because like a line reading was so bizarre. People say a lot of weird stuff in these, and when they're doing the mock trial and, the defendants have their mouths taped shut. So every time she's done interrogating someone, she's like, "Is there any cross-examination?" And they're going, and then they just move on. But then she calls her son to the stand and is like, "So do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" "Sure, Mama, I wouldn't shit you." There was something about the way he said that that might enter my lexicon.
And in typical John Waters fashion, she repeats the oath every time and says, "I hope you're aware your oath is still in effect." And it's just typical John Waters thing of when somebody gets in a car, you best believe you're going to see them open the door, get in the car, close the door, drive away, get out of the car later,
Robin pointed this out to me. And yeah, there's a lot
wants to clue you in.
Extra stuff that definitely could be cut out.
It's what makes it a movie, He's like, I needed to get coverage shots.
Yeah, look at that car going. It's still going. Now they're getting out of the car, going to the house, watching them close the door when they go into the house.
Yeah, if nothing else, this movie hits 90 minutes.
It sure does.
So good job on that. And there was one other little throwaway joke where they're mailing the turd to Divine, and they're just mailing the package, and it's addressed to Babs Johnson, and the address line just says "a trailer," and
Phoenix.
it still finds them.
Maryland.
And that's the kind of like actual joke that there aren't very many of in this movie, besides just insane.
Well, especially when they're at the post office and there's this lovely little tune playing. It's the birthday song, and they're like, you get all these great little Wes Anderson style shots on the shipping labels.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all the soundtrack in this movie. It's all like rockabilly and like old timey rock and roll music, and quite often, it, like Robin said to me, it like corresponds actually with what's going on screen. It's always not just like frivolous like rock and roll music.
Yeah, the lyrics in all of his films of the songs are always tied to what's happening. He's very intent on that. And the rockabilly thing's great. It's kind of like a motif in his early films. Multiple Maniacs has this really cool, like, if it came out nowadays, you would call it like post-rockabilly, ambient, kind of thing almost happening, like with this instrumental rockabilly stuff that's being played. Very sparse, like Link Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that takes us to the climax, which is probably the thing that people who haven't seen this movie know about the most. I knew about it. I didn't know exactly what context there was to the dog shit eating, and it turns out there really isn't much of a context to it.
No, they just realized it was still on the list, and they had to cross
it
it off.
in there.
Exactly. There's some sort of a narration that's, about them moving to Boise, Idaho to just continue their reign of filth, and something about wanting to prove again that Divine's the filthiest person in the world. And, we we get a shot that very carefully is following a dog around so that you actually see it shit. Because, I mean, who's going to eat dog shit on camera without there being like proof that it's real if you're going to do
Right.
it?
I appreciate that. They did not
And it's
give me
such a
proof in
long
Sallow.
shot.
Zero proof in Sallow.
He chewed on that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then it just ends. I read that they they followed this dog around for like 3 hours waiting for it to shit, just doing like close-ups
Yeah.
of its ass. And hey man, that's showbiz.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
Gotta
And
get the shot.
I don't know, what else do you say about that? Okay, you can analyze the dog shit eating at the end of Pink Flamingos. It just is what it is. Like the whole rest of this movie just is what it is.
Yeah, it's just completely contrarian and shit-mouthed, just like wanting to be as snotty as possible. Because it was all about freaking out the hippies also, right? He wasn't worried about freaking out the straights and everybody. He was worried about freaking out the hippies, and show them something.
And
no
one's safe.
It's the final insult, and I think that it's a juvenile but a wonderful touch.
Yeah, it seems like the whole movie is like he has something to prove, that he's going to show you these things. He's going to make people flee the theater. Where like William Castle would hand out the vomit bags, and it would just be this big ruse to get people to go see this cheap like B horror movie. John Waters is like, no, you're actually going to need this. And if you don't think that you're going to need it, fuck you. Look.
Yeah.
See, I go back and forth. I think there is sort of like a punk rock snotty like anger behind some of this like bombast in these kind of movies, but for me I think there is also what's important is like this layer of just like this is what this group of people thought was funny. I think these are just like we just have this
funny,
naughty, gross sense of humor, and we want to share it, and we don't care who sees it. And actually, what really turns us on is when other people walk by and see us eating shit, so let's throw it up on the big screen, which I think is just all in good fun.
Yeah, Divine walking through the streets, with the free Tex Watson
Oh yeah,
which they did do
I noticed
themselves.
that.
They did do that graffiti themselves.
Oh god. Of all the ones to defend Tex.
Yeah, I think a big part of the shooting and the presentation of Pink Flamingos was presenting Divine in full splendor to the world, and just getting off on that, knowing that you were the one filming it and causing a scene, and then when you showed the film it would make a scene.
It's revenge. Yeah, revenge on bigotry and revenge on the hippies for thinking they know it all,
Yeah. Hippies are as bad as the straights, man.
Amen.
All right, well, I want to leave us with a line from Roger Ebert's review.
Are you
going to
eat shit?
Which
Are you
he
gonna
did
eat shit right now?
I've been eating shit this whole podcast.
You can wait till the end of the episode if you want. Stay tuned. Marc will eat shit. The audio version of Marc eating shit.
No, this is going to be Ebert eating shit. Because he did review this movie, not when it originally came out, but during its 1997 re-release, and he declined to give it a star rating. And his reason at the end of the review is, I am not giving a star rating to Pink Flamingos because stars simply seem not to apply. It should be considered not as a film, but as a fact, or perhaps as an object. And I think I see the reasoning to that.
I thought I was going to hate that a lot more. I thought he was gonna be all like, "Poo poo! I'd never heard of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls."
Right. Well,
whenever he's all like, I don't get him sometimes, but I like that one. I'll take that one.
Because I think part of it is, I don't know, it's almost intrinsic to the whole meaning of the movie is the act of watching it with a midnight crowd, preferably in 1972, where these weren't the kind of sites that you could see, on YouTube or anywhere, let alone on a giant movie screen. And it almost has that Freddy Got Fingered quality to it, where the whole point is who is watching this and coming across it and the context for it. Although I have to say I wasn't crazy about this object. And I think maybe the difference is that Freddy Got Fingered has like it takes the form of a mainstream gross out comedy, and that adds a little extra layer maybe of the to the joke. And this isn't quite doing the same thing as that. And also, there's the whole just geek show like aspect of it, of what we're seeing. Like, I don't know if I would have liked Freddy Got Fingered as much if that was like a real baby he was swinging around the birthing room.
As long as the baby was fine at the end and they ate it, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But as a work of domestic terrorism, this gets the job done, I would say.
I would agree. But also, we clearly land a little bit more on, we'll probably watch this next week sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that I'm the only one who's going to unwatch this one. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yes, definitely.
Although I guess I'm glad to have it behind me.
It's a big part, it's a big part of your heritage, your queer boy heritage, Marc.
Oh, boy.
Bam!
It's important. It's important. Think of your gay family. You gonna turn your back on a shit-eating gay family?
All right, I'll accept it, but I'm not going to that family reunion.
You never come over anymore.
So yeah, this was the beginning of this trash trilogy, and we're gonna skip next to the last entry in it, which, like Robin mentioned, is the only film John Waters made without Divine. So we do get to get a little more of a taste of what he is up to when he doesn't have his muse around, and where that goes. And I did enjoy this. This one was a little more my speed. And
wild.
It's a magical story.
It's beautiful
fairy tale.
Exactly. I don't necessarily want to say it's polished, but it does seem like John Waters has learned a little bit about filmmaking, and it almost approaches competence. So that we have that going on for it too. But also, yeah, I mean, this is like the Wizard of Oz, right?
Basically.
This is fantastical. And
that
was
the
vibe that I got from this. And it's a little less about the actual horrible things being performed for the camera, and a little more absurd in like a Trauma way. This really made me think of Trauma.
Oh yeah, he definitely is the forerunner in many ways, of the twist Trauma gave to the whole shtick.
Could we do a break between movies? I'd like to get some water.
Break denied.
Water.
I was hoping we could do a pee break. I always got to pee before the second movie.
I gotta smoke, so
I gotta pee and eat my poop.
I gotta probably pee and all that stuff.
I gotta go fuck a chicken.
Can I say stay tuned or don't miss it?
Yeah, say it.
We'll be right back. Do not miss it.
Oh man, so the plot of Desperate Living, huh?
Yeah, that's also a fun one
Yes.
to just say in 5 minutes.
So
and not make it half a podcast.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best, because we do have Mink Stoll, who played the villain Connie in Pink Flamingos. She stars in Desperate Living as Peggy Gravel.
If you watch nothing else, watch the first 15 minutes of this movie. It's fucking hilarious and
Be
insane.
swept away.
It just starts immediately, and Mink is just screaming at the top of her lungs. What is the first thing that happens? The kids are playing baseball, and they hit a baseball into her window.
I knew it. I knew they'd try to kill me.
She's just like having a crazy manic episode and
Dumb.
shrieking at the children and like threatening them.
She hates the Supreme Court. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Topical.
The first like 15 minutes of this movie is totally its own thing, I think. And it had me prepared for a totally different movie than we ended up getting, because it seems like it's going to be this domestic psychodrama or something. And I do like the cut from this lady's husband talking to a doctor, and he's like, "This is the most neurotic woman I've ever seen." And the husband is like, "Well, I think that we're on the road to good health, and I'm optimistic about it." And then we just get 10 straight minutes of her absolutely screaming at everything and everyone like a
The
maniac.
children are having sex.
She like, yeah, oh yeah, she like walks into a room and there's like, that's a pretty,
Not talk about Unwatchable.
that's an unwatchable scene. There's just
It's,
like two naked children just like playing doctor, but literally playing doctor.
Yeah, don't
And
put
then
that
she
one.
just opens the door and just like, oh, you're raping your own sister.
Nude.
Children are having sex.
You
Is
could
a
be
direct,
pregnant, Beth.
all direct quotes from this movie that you just
Sorry.
can't believe you're hearing.
Yeah. Some of the greatest dialogue ever to be penned.
She's insane.
Yeah, so for a little, it looks like we're almost getting some kind of crazy parody of like a hysterical housewife movie or something like that.
A woman under the influence.
Yeah, exactly. And when that baseball sails through the window and the kid's like, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gravel, I'll pay for it with my allowance." And she's just, "How about my life? Do you get enough allowance to pay for that?"
Tell your mother I hate her. Tell your mother I hate you.
And the kids run away.
It's very quote. She gets a wrong number phone call. Wrong number.
You've dialed the wrong number.
She freaks out on him. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
fun.
And then, swiftly they're on the lam.
Well, don't jump too far ahead, because we got Griselda, her psychiatric nurse, this very large woman.
Yeah,
And
she's one of my favorite parts of this movie.
Mhm.
This large black maid, and she's wonderful. Is she in more movies with John Waters? I forgot to research her, but
Like sporadically.
yeah, she's awesome. I think I read something like he saw her in like a burlesque show, and that's how he found her. But yeah, she's wild, and she's trying to calm down Mrs. Gravel, and it's not working, and her husband comes up and tries to calm her down. And how does it all happen? The murder, exactly.
Well, Mink believes that her husband is about to kill her, and she calls
he's giving her
Griselda for
medication.
help. Yeah. And she calls Griselda for help, and Griselda comes in and shouts, "Fuck off, asshole," and proceeds to beat and then suffocate him to death with her own posterior.
It's very cool. She sits
Very
on him,
cool
and he
scene.
dies.
As she shouts, "Down, down, down, down!"
And then Mrs. Gravel's like, "Don't sit on me, please." And then they run off together.
Yeah. Only.
Yeah, and it's like right then it abandons the whole suburban setting. Anything that you thought this movie might have been about these domestic things, and becomes, I guess, like these two out on the run, this strange pair
But
of
only
people.
very momentarily before they encounter an officer of the law who interdicts them momentarily for their undergarments, and then
Oh yeah, and
directs them to Mortville.
he's dressed up in like ladies'
Panties.
underwear, and
He's sent away to Fredericks.
and he's like bothering them and stealing their underwear, and he's writhing on the floor while he like after kissing them and stuff. It's
In
this whole long
ecstasy.
scene. But yeah,
he,
I mean,
he agrees to let them go if they give him their underwear, which he then
Yeah.
puts on and kisses them and slobbers all over their faces. And then he lets them go because he tells them about Mortville, which is this little shanty town, I guess, full of criminals where people go who have broken the law so they can live freely. except it
It's a
doesn't turn out
zone.
there.
It's a zone,
Sure.
like
It's a zone,
Stalker,
yeah.
you know?
And
Just
that's
like
the real
Stalker.
setting of this movie. That's I don't know, Oz. Just
It
because I know
becomes
that
about
John
the
Waters.
liberation of Mortville.
Indeed.
Yeah, and that opens up a whole new cast of characters, this whole new setting, and that's really where everything settles in. That's what this movie is really doing. And this, again, we get more people from the other movies because this Mortville is ruled over by Queen Carlotta, which is the mom from Pink Flamingos, Edith Massey.
Eggs.
Yeah, it's the eggs lady, and
Edie Massey.
she's the queen of this little strange, shitty town, and is always declaring these strange decrees. She has these guards who are all dressed in kind of like leather daddy gear, and who have sex with her and please her. She's always eating confectionaries, and she's always carted
Feeding
around.
pizza to pigeons.
Oh, I love when she feeds pizza to the pigeon. It's just this long scene where she's just
You want a
feeding it.
slice of
You
pizza?
want one? But yeah, she lives in this castle. There is a set.
There's an actual castle.
Just this
The
real
drawbridge.
shitty, like cardboard looking castle that they live in, and there's a working drawbridge that they walk into.
Yeah,
Everything
it's like a
does
minute.
feel like a fairy tale. Yeah,
It's like a miniature golf castle. Like you can see the nails and shit sticking out of it.
When there's a close up, you see how the brick details are just smudge painted on there,
Yup.
or sponge painted rather.
yeah. It's John Waters' fantasy world. It's him making his own little town.
It's a little fairy tale.
Definitely, and
of
she
course,
has a
from there
daughter.
it chronicles Peggy Gravel's descent into fascism.
Basically.
Yeah, there's really no way to determine where this is going to go because we start out with Griselda and Peggy being basically the main characters, and at some point down the line, Griselda gets killed with this house they're staying in collapsing on her, and it's just unceremoniously
Mysteriously,
exits
she
the movie.
appeared. Yeah.
She disappeared.
Yeah, it's weird. Like that's sort of my only real gripe with this movie is, and I might like it better next time I watch it because I know what's coming. But I was really into these two main characters, Gravel and Griselda, like being this unlikely duo trying to survive this weird town and everything. I really did like it, and there is like romantic, like sexual tension between them at a certain point where, like, well, if you could call it that, she like Griselda.
There's a
is
sex scene.
sharing a bed. There is a sex scene, and it's basically a rape scene too, kind of. Or is it? I don't even know what it is.
It's something outside of
Yes.
all other sexual experiences that came before or after.
Yeah, it's wild.
We don't have the analogies for it.
But yeah, after Griselda dies, it sort of veers off, and it's more about like what are their names? There's a lesbian couple.
There's Mole
Yeah.
and
Well, not a lesbian couple because Mole is like trans. Mole is. Like,
I don't think
yeah.
that it's actually like doable as such because she's like the character is so diametric in how she or is so like contradictory in how she presents herself, and it because sometimes it's like this man hating butch, and then other times it's like I'm a man stuck in a woman's body.
Oh yeah, but she really wants to be a man, and she wants a dick so she can fuck her girlfriend, and that becomes like a whole big part of this movie. Eventually, ending in her going and getting a sex change and getting a dick that's very strange because she has to like threaten the doctor to do it, so he does it really fast, and it winds up being this really crazy looking meat thing that I don't even know what it is, and her what's her face, her partner is very horrified by the whole thing and makes her cut it off. It's a lot.
It's a sex change at knife point. Which is never the best way to go about it. Although, again, if you haven't seen this movie, this probably sounds really incomprehensible right now.
It's a tough one to,
I'll do my best because basically when the couple arrives in Mortville, they take up room and board at a place that's run by this butch lesbian with like boils all over her face named Mole. who we learn what used to be a wrestler, and she's in Mortville because she gouged out a wrestler's eye and killed a ref.
Oh, that's a
And-
cool
When she
scene.
kills the wrestler too. Jimmy Dong, the big Jimmy Dong, the human
Yes.
hammerhead,
Pulls out
the
his
human
eyeball.
blockhead.
Pulls out his eyeball and somebody steps on it.
She steps on it.
Oh.
And she has this girlfriend, the very feminine girlfriend called Muffy, played by Liz Renee, who's kind of a cult figure. And we get a flashback to her killing her son's babysitter by drowning them in a bowl of dog food. That's why she's there. We get a whole sequence that shows us her and her husband coming
After you
home
see
and
a
finding her
child
son
in
the
a
refrigerator. Yeah. And as punishment to the babysitter. And that kid's not happy to be in that fridge. She opens it up, and that
child
kid is upset.
crying the second the door opens.
And
There,
then
sobbing.
she kills her husband, right? And it's like he gets his head
Oh, yeah, she
caught
kills-
in the wind.
She rolls the window up
the
on
window
his
of
head
the car, and then she drives down
away.
the street with him stuck to the window
This
of the
fantastic dummy hanging off the side of the car.
car. So dumb.
In this night shot that's completely unlit.
Yes.
Yeah, and so those two, this lesbian couple, they kind of become the main characters because Griselda dies, and eventually Peggy turns evil and joins the Queen Carlotta in her plan to give rabies to the entire town. And it should be said that that Peggy never stops complaining and bitching and hating everybody the whole movie.
Yeah, she's a fascist from the get-go, but it's only until she sees the beauty
Sure.
of it later.
So she's our
Robin's writing a
protagonist
book
in the
about this
sense
one.
that we start the movie with her and that we follow her along, even though we don't necessarily like her. I mean, she's funny because she is so fucking crazy. But eventually she becomes like a bad guy and is one of the people that they get, that the townspeople get revenge on when they finally turn on the evil queen. So this has a really weird shift in character dynamics. And
Now we've also... Oh, I'm sorry.
well, just real quick, the whole sex reassignment things happens because Mole and Muffy get a lottery ticket that was stolen from Peggy's house, and that's part of their payment for letting them live in the shanty town. And the lottery ticket ends up winning, so she runs into town to get all of their money, and that's where she goes to the sex reassignment clinic, which is just a big sign there, and holds the doctor at knife point to get the sex change. And then returns home, and we see this strange penis that she has, and her girlfriend doesn't like it, so we see her cut it off and toss it outside, and a dog runs up and eats it. Which is just to say, this movie is just one damn thing happening after another. It's just something that happens.
Meanwhile, Princess Cuckoo is in love with Herbert, who is the
Oh,
garbage collector at the nudist camp.
side plot,
And
gossip.
Queen Carlotta does not approve of Herbert and has him killed by her guard. And Princess Cuckoo escapes from being grounded and is gradually recaptured, and then is patient zero for the rabies inoculations.
That bitch.
That little MF.
I just want to say that I was not able to watch this movie partly because I ran out of time and partly because of the spiritual toll that Pink Flamingos took on me. But this sounds like a movie you guys are making up to fuck with me.
As
It's
we
like
go
a dream
along.
come true.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, I also we'll throw this in. They are wearing their clothes backwards most of the movie because
Yes.
Edie proclaims that it's backwards day, and everybody's got to walk backwards and wear everything backwards. So a big chunk of this movie that's happening while all the other crazy shit's happening.
And Queen Carlotta is paraded through town on her royal litter and berates and insults and derides them.
Always having sex.
Hey,
with her
moron,
life.
you got your clothes on backwards.
Once again, a great moment of like this weird woman who I'm sure like people walk down the street and are like, what the hell? Who is that person? But John Waters finds her and makes her the queen, and she gets all these crazy monologues, and he gets toted around by beautiful men slaves, and insults everyone as she parades through the streets. It's like this dream come true. It's wonderful.
And in each of the movies with her, he'll leave in a part where she forgets her line in the middle of it, and she goes,
It is really good.
She was like, the Eggman, when will he be here?
Yeah, she is one of the least professional of the non-professional actors, I think, but John Waters loves her.
She's a star. She's beautiful.
Yeah, she's Brian Wilson, you know. She's like the Brian Wilson, the Sid Barrett, you know.
And
Pete Docker.
Yeah, all of that word salad we just threw at you is this movie.
Fleetwood Mac.
Manic Street Preachers.
Anyway.
But I did think Backwards Day was funny because everyone is so cranky, and I kind of forgot about it until all of a sudden we get a shot where everyone is just like crankily walking backwards and wearing their clothes backwards. So I did laugh at that. And I laughed at more things in this movie, definitely, than Pink Flamingos, just because it's just like anything that he can think of that reaches this level of absurdity that it's almost fantastic. And that's part of what reminds me of Trauma. This is like Tromaville. This is this little place full of weirdos and rabies is coming up and all of these random things within the sex change, but the movie's not really about any of those things. It just kind of gets them to the final point where the townspeople are attacking the castle and get their revenge, which involves putting the barrel of a gun literally up Peggy's ass and shooting it.
Isn't that when your mom walked in?
Yeah.
I think that's when your mom walked in on Mother's Day.
We were finishing it on Mother's Day, and my mother and sister walked in, and I was like, we got to finish this movie. You'll love it. Don't worry.
Honestly, there's way worse parts than that, so...
Yes, it's true. Now, interestingly, while Seth and I were watching it, and the first time I watched it, I think at first just because it used a similar device, but in structure, you could compare it to A Holy Mountain in that... You get this incredibly like engaging and bizarro introduction, and then the movie takes a very different corner and goes into a very different place.
Yeah,
and you get these kind of weird vignettes that are interspersed in there, right? These flashback scenes. And then you have, again, this ending that does not bear a lot of relationship to the other part of it either, but it's very satisfying, you know?
Yeah, and the main character is like transformed.
Yeah,
she becomes a witch.
It's a funny structural comparison.
She does become a witch, right? Is she a witch?
Well, I think again, we were confused on this. I think that she's just the evil princess now, and she's she's witchy, but I think in a way that it's a tribute to that old, the Disney, the evil queen kind of vibe. The evil queen happens to be a witch too, but she's more the evil queen than anything.
Yeah, she looks like Maleficent, and she's stirring Mrs. Gravel. That is, she's stirring the cauldron that's making all the rabies that they're gonna give to the townspeople.
Put in some rat piss for good measure.
She looks like she was modeled after the Queen in Snow White, actually, to me, like her actual outfit.
That's what I was thinking also.
And then she is doing like a potion. So it's just more imagery pulled from John Waters' disgusting subconscious.
Yeah, that's what I looked at it as.
It's a Disney movie.
And
I think...
Well, it ends with them marching out with the queen roasted like a pig. And it's a pretty gruesome... The close-up that we get of her face.
What are you even looking at?
Gross.
Yeah.
What is it?
Poor Edie.
Now, one thing, though, I think that's very, critical to the understanding of the point I was making earlier, of course, as a through line.
In your book?
In my book, is that in that final exchange just before Mole blows it out her ass, as she says, that's where she finally says, you don't understand the beauty of fascism. And I think that the ultimate through line of the film is that, his message was that this like character in this environment that she came from was fascistic, in this particular way he's looking at, and that this is like the natural arc and progression of the character, that she's placed in this environment where she's given the opportunity to flourish in a world full of people who completely confirm her beliefs about other people, that she makes the perfect fascist. So your suburban average white person who's slightly neurotic can make the ideal fascist,
And she gets to create a disease weapon that wipes them all out.
Exactly.
Off camera, of course. That's the thing. It ends on them celebrating the death of the queen and devouring her roasted body, but we know it's full of rabies, and they're about to have a bunch of rabies. But
they already knew that, remember? Because
Did they know
Princess
that?
Cuckoo says, "Let me have a bite out of her fat little thighs," and then she bites her, and she goes, "Eh."
So are they going happily into that great rabies in the sky?
I think we're supposed to believe that cooking her kills, the rabies
Oh, okay.
particles.
I was. Okay,
Yeah, I think
okay.
so. I think it's supposed
I
to
think
be a
that's
joyous
Suspension of
celebration at the
disbelief,
end.
Yeah.
I see.
It really ruins the verisimilitude of the rest of the
Oh.
movie, but
That's a happy ending.
so yeah, that's probably the best reading you could possibly wring out of this movie. But I mean, he's not the most
Wholesome to the end.
he's not the most elegant social satirist, if that was his point. But that's fine.
Oh no, well, that's strictly hermeneutics right there. There is no actual, I don't think, on his part, any
Right.
commentary like that. He's on record as a non-message filmmaker, and the world needs those people because you get Desperate Living and you get Pink Flamingos.
But messages can be construed because it is. I think this one feels very stream of consciousness. This one feels very like he's just rolling with whatever comes out of his mind at this point. And also he has like the respect of his little group to follow him wherever he wants to go. And he goes some just bizarro places. Yeah.
And they did no improv. I mean, there's some little ad-libbing, but it's all scripted, which you can obviously tell,
Even when Edie's like
reading dialogue,
having sex with the leather daddies and being like, "Give me that love muscle."
Oh,
Come
grow,
here."
little inchworm.
Oh yeah, so many good lines.
Yeah, nothing sounds extemporaneous coming from these actors' mouths. There might even have been like cue cards or something. But yeah, there is a little bit of a real thing to talk about here, because I did read that some lesbian groups like protested this movie when it first came out, because this town, this Mortville, does seem to be populated with a lot of butch lesbians. And so we get a few things like, the mole who just seems like a lesbian, but at one point, is saying that I'm a man trapped in a woman's body. And then there's the whole sex change thing. But it seems like she's only doing it because she thinks that her girlfriend wants to. So I don't know if this movie really differentiates between like, this is a trans person, this is a lesbian person. They're all just kind of weird. And when there is a point when they all get together and are talking about how, men are an abomination, and it's an outrageous, like, man-hating lesbian, stereotype he's playing off of.
Well, and again, I think that's, Gadfly, being deliberately contrary and controversial, because like if you're part of like what's to just use an easy word, what's more punk than to try to make fun of people within your social in-group, like if you're looking at the queer population, like within your in-group, what's more punk than making fun of other queer people then, oh, so what, I can take it,
Right. I mean, yeah, John follows this trajectory that was definitely handed off to other artists as like queer film went on and queer art went on, like someone like Dennis Cooper or things like that, which are the like quote unquote bad gays, right? Where so much of gay art is understandably about trying to make a case for being gay, and how it is like we are good people. We do exist, and we do good things, and we don't just, we aren't just awful and die in the street, right? There's still these artists like John Waters that kind of don't give a shit and are wanting to still, they don't want to have to play by those rules of being message givers or anything, or having a responsibility, which is sort of a burden for a queer artist, I think, sometimes. He doesn't want to have to be like, I don't need to be the example of all gay artists or what gay art should be. And like, if I give us a bad name or scare people, like, he doesn't seem to care. He wants to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, and knowing that he is gay and clearly has affection for all of these people that he's working with in the movie and everything does make a difference with that. Coming from somebody else, it might raise, a few more eyebrows, but this is his whole aesthetic, and he's pretty equal opportunity about absolutely anybody. Everyone is a pervert and a lunatic in this movie, right? No matter who they are.
Why, other gay people at the time would be like threatened by this, because it's like, I'm just trying to get my mom to think I'm not a monster, and then she goes and somehow, happens on some of this shit.
And also, what a great way to, if you want to be absurd, if you want to be surreal, and you want to make a fairy tale, what's more perverse and surreal and, out there than having this fantasy land of evil people who is populated by butch lesbians, like, what a hilarious idea, right. What a great idea, So what? Let's do it,
Mm-hmm. He's not cut up in what the responsibilities are.
Also,
I'm not advocating for abjecthood in art and that whole attitude, as you guys have discussed in other episodes. But when the Birth of a Nation episode, which just came out the day of us doing this, abjecthood in art and a lack of consideration of impact and ethics in creation. And yeah, John Waters certainly skirts that line, but
that's a good point too. And that it is like, it's very fine. It is a delicate dance, and you should expect kind of to be attacked, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can create, that's a good point. You can create dangerous stuff from art.
Yeah. So I'm not advocating for that. I think that John Waters is just one of those rare cases of people who can do that and pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So overall, I was got a lot more out of this one, I think, and I'm curious to see what the one in between these two is like. Female Trouble.
That's like arguably my personal favorite one.
I find it really punishing, but in like a different way of like, it's not that it's more gross than any of these, but it just feels more like just upsetting for some reason. I don't know, like dark. I was like, just a dark feeling,
unrelenting,
a dark kind of brooding mood to that one.
But the dialogue is so insanely sharp and beautiful.
It's very funny.
Edith Massey plays this woman who wants to convert her nephew to become gay, and she says, "Oh, I wish you would go, Nellie. We'll get you a nice job as a female impersonator."
I feel like I've seen it now.
Female Trouble is kind of a masterwork. I mean, all three of these are beautiful, and as is Multiple Maniacs.
I never knew it was a trilogy until today.
I mean, loosely.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Retrospectively.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like the Gus Van Sant Death trilogy. So
there's death in all of them.
Yep.
Can't say there's not.
I also want to make sure that I mention that I did really enjoy Mary Vivian Pierce, who plays Princess Cuckoo in this. She played Cotton in Pink Flamingos. I think she actually has like a genuinely funny delivery and just way that she speaks.
Kills it. She bloomed in that one. Yeah, that's her best.
Yeah, I could see her being hilarious in all kinds of movies just based on this. Whereas, I think maybe
like in a hysterical airplane kind of,
Yeah, well, like Edith Massey probably needs to be with John Waters, and I could see Princess Cuckoo going on
She's gonna be a star.
SNL or something.
There's actually a wonderful short documentary that comes out in 75 or 76 called Love Letter to Edie, which is a short documentary feature on Edith Massey. And so it's done by somebody else. It's not by John Waters. And Mink and Mary Vivian Pierce are in it, and there's all these reenacted scenes of her childhood, and they play her mean stepsisters, and they're like, "You can't go to prom, Edie," and she's like, "Oh no,"
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of them have some really classic spin-off things they were able to do. Like Divine was in a really cool one called Lust in the Dust, which is like a gay Western satire joint, That's about it, but
Did Divine? So when did Divine die?
88 or 89.
Oh, it was in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah, he had some kind of a heart condition that.
Yeah.
Oh, so not all that long after these.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
yeah,
rest
because
in
right
peace,
after
Divine.
that is Polyester.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and then the slow drift into the mainstream, unlikely as it was. You could almost look at it like Peter Jackson's early films, and then all of a sudden he becomes this like bland blockbuster director. That's maybe a more extreme example than John Waters.
Yeah, definitely more extreme
Yeah.
example. Yeah.
John Waters never made the fucking Hobbit movies.
Or King Kong.
Right.
I like King Kong.
I know you do.
But for either of them, if you saw their big blockbusters or whatever their big successes,
I don't think John
then
Waters
you
had a
go
big
back.
blockbuster.
Not a big blockbuster,
Yeah.
but he does have a hit Broadway musical. Let's say that they liked, the Hairspray movie or something.
Sure.
The
Yeah,
Based
remake.
on the film by.
Yeah, my mom
Right.
likes the remake of Hairspray. Yeah, like
awesome.
a lot
It
of
would be
people
like-
love the remake of Hairspray.
It'd be like watching Lord of the Rings and then seeing like, oh, what are the early movies by this Peter Jackson like? And like, what? How did he even get this job?
Get Alive.
Dead Alive.
Yeah.
So
So
it's obvious he got the job because that's a beautiful movie.
And they knew
Must
that
be.
Bilbo.
I want to see the John Waters Lord of the Rings, though. That would have been better.
Ooh, my.
Oh man, Divine plays Gandalf and has
Mhm.
sex with all the hobbits.
We get to see Frodo's asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Now I forget. In Pink Flamingos, other than the blowjob scene, is there any other sex scene with Divine? In that
Not
film?
with Divine.
No.
The
Well-
two villains have this like foot sucking sex.
Oh
with each
yes,
other
the
Yeah.
shrimping
that we didn't
scene.
talk
Yeah,
about.
it's
Oh,
classic. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So that was
Rabid.
again two people who were willing to just like lick each other's nasty toes. Wonderful.
You take a shower, everything's fine.
I'd lick both their toes.
Oh yeah, at the same time.
Well, so I'm not on
Whatever.
watching this one. I assume you guys aren't. I assume we're all on the same page about being all right with this one.
I'm gonna sandwich both the feet of this one in my mouth.
That's what
All
I'm
right.
gonna do. I'm gonna get a cum shot of this one. You know what I'm saying?
A big money shot facial Hollywood blockbuster.
I think Tony's gone. I think he just walked out of his apartment.
Yeah, or he would have played the where's the drop?
Eggs,
Where's the drop, Tony?
We don't use the
Supposed to play
drops
drop when I
in
say
the
cum.
real episode, but maybe this one warrants it.
Oh. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yeah, this
It's
is
the one
like
thing we don't get in these films.
this is at least like close up cum shot number 6 or 7 for the podcast so far, and we've only had like 11 episodes.
Wow.
We gotta watch different
Can
movies.
you do another cool sound? Can we get another sound?
We're out of sounds. No, we never played the
We're
one
not out of sounds.
we never played the one from Pink Flamingos that I added before we recorded.
Eggs! Eggs! Eggs!
There it is.
Man, that's
That's-
a great one.
That's my
There
favorite
we
one
go.
so
Yeah.
far.
That's a fine place to end.
Absolutely. So, Robin, thank you for joining us and guiding us through this disgusting discussion. Is there anything that you'd like to say or promote or leave us with while you got the mic?
Do you remember
Go
that
check
Fred
out-
Armisen, when Fred Armisen was on TV that one time and he shouted out death grips on Ellen?
No.
I'd like to leave everyone with that thought,
Death grips.
On Ellen. I don't personally care for death grips myself. I find it awful tawdry, but the first mixtape was, was good. Listen to
Ex-military.
Hella instead, everyone.
On Ellen.
On Ellen.
Well, I'm glad I asked. Thanks.
Go check out Valley Girls if you're in the Akron area, Northeast Ohio.
Yeah. We'll be playing again soon. Little baby duo.
We should promote one now because, we don't know when this is going to come out. So,
This will come out sometime in June.
promotion.
Actually, there is a new 4K Blu-ray through Criterion that is coming out of Pink Flamingos on June 28th. So if this episode airs before then, mark your calendars. If it adds after, go ahead and click through the link that we provide so that we get a residual for it.
We'll get sponsored.
Yeah, and I actually do have, if this comes out before July, I have a thing. I do actually have a thing.
Go ahead and promote your thing. It's definitely going to come out before either of those things we just said.
Big Noise Candy Mountain, West
Oh,
Virginia. Be there.
It's a noise fest in the middle of the woods in West Virginia. A bunch of weird bands. We're going to be there.
Can you
As
guys...
will
A
be
band
the heavy
called
hitters of the
Mothcock.
Midwest noise scene, such as the Almighty Mothcock, Tiger Village.
Bring your mom.
Bring your mom.
Reed Evan Parker will be there.
Can you guys
He's
give
the
us...
guy that lives down the street.
Can you guys give us a little more specific details than just go to the woods in July? Is there a date for this event?
The address
July.
is a trailer.
More or less. It's in, if you go to bignoisecandymountain.com, you can find out more.
There we go.
Or it's on Instagram and all that shit.
It's also on Instagram.
That's not a real website. You just said
Yeah.
that, didn't you?
We'll
Instagram.com.
we'll link to that in the description of this episode. I realized this week that I've been saying in almost every episode that we'll link to something in the description, and then I always forget to actually do it. So, apologies to everyone
That's
we
your
ever said
job.
we would link to. But this one we're gonna make this one happen. We're gonna link to something in the description.
Yeah, that GoFundMe for our
Going
last
through
guest's
some videos.
cancer treatments. They were really counting on that.
That's
No
not on
link.
me.
Oh,
That's not on me.
No
Do
link.
not.
Marc, you're
That episode's not gonna air.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.